The envelope was pristine, thick ivory cardstock, the Willow Creek Estates logo embossed in gold. It looked more like a wedding invitation than a notice of violation. I tore it open, scanning the contents. Dear resident, it began. Your front door has been found in non-compliance with HOA Regulation 12.3, Exterior Color Standards. You are hereby ordered to repaint it in an approved shade within 7 days or face escalating penalties. I stared at my door, a bold, elegant navy, then back at the letter. This was the emergency. Willow Creek's Homeowners Association had a reputation for pettiness, but I'd assumed the stories were exaggerated. Until now. The board's iron grip. The HOA office was a converted ranch house at the neighborhood's entrance. Its manicured hedges trimmed into unnaturally perfect rectangles. Inside, the air smelled like lemon disinfectant and printer ink. Marjorie Whitmore, the HOA's executive secretary, peered over her cat-eye glasses as I approached. Her coral-painted lips pursed. Ah, Ms. Carter. Hear about the violation, I assume. I'd like an explanation, I said, sliding the letter across the desk. My door isn't neon pink, it's navy, not an approved shade. She tapped a laminated color chart. Heritage brown, colonial white. Those are your options. That's insane. Those are the rules. Her voice sharpened. You agreed to them when you bought your home. I had signed the paperwork, buried in a mountain of closing documents, but no one had warned me that HOA treated aesthetic choices like felonies. The warning shot. 3 days later, a second notice arrived. Failure to comply within 48 hours will result in corrective action at homeowner's expense. Oh, corrective action. My neighbor Luis scoffed when I showed him. He'd lived here 5 years and spoke in the weary tone of a war veteran. Last year they fined me $200 for a visible garden hose. They'll probably send their goons to paint it themselves. They can't just enter my property. He gave me a pitying look. Read the fine print. I did. Buried in the covenants was a clause granting the HOA authority to remedy violations if homeowners refused, with all costs billed back to them. My stomach nodded. This wasn't about paint. It was a power play. The trap set. I wasn't reckless. Before escalating, I tried reason. I petitioned the board for an exemption, citing studies that dark doors had no impact on property values. Denied. I offered to compromise. Repaint if they expanded the color options. Rejected. Then, the final notice. Corrective action scheduled for 5/21. A locksmith will be present to ensure compliance. Locksmith. That's when I knew. They weren't just planning to paint my door. They were planning to break in. The hidden advantage. I'd installed a smart lock system months ago, one with a failsafe. Even if the physical keyhole was replaced, I could still control the deadbolt remotely via an encrypted app. I also had cameras, hidden ones. If the HOA thought they could strong-arm me, they were in for a surprise. Because I wasn't just going to fight back, I was going to win. The morning of May 21st dawned with an eerie quiet. I left for work early, but not before positioning my phone at the perfect angle to watch my security feed live. The app displayed 4 camera views: front door, living room, kitchen, and backyard. Every inch of my home was monitored. I didn't have to wait long. At exactly 9:03 a.m., a white van with Willow Creek HOA compliance, emblazoned on the side, rolled up to my driveway. 3 people stepped out, 2 men in polo shirts with HOA badges, and, of course, Marjorie Whitmore, her clipboard clutched like a weapon. A 4th man followed, carrying a locksmith's toolkit. My pulse spiked. They were really doing this. 2. The invasion. The footage was crystal clear. The locksmith knelt at my door, prying off the old deadbolt. Marjorie hovered behind him, arms crossed, while the 2 compliance officers peered through my front window like nosy neighbors. Then, the moment that made my blood boil, once the new lock was installed, Marjorie Cheese took the first key, slid it into the knob, and, without hesitation, pushed my front door open. They walked inside my house. The taller compliance officer whistled. Nice place. Shame about the door. Marjorie ignored him, zeroing in on the can of navy blue paint still sitting on my hallway table. Shh. Defiant to the end. She snapped a photo with her phone. Evidence. The locksmith shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, I was just hired to rekey. And you've been paid. Marjorie cut in. She turned to the officers. Start moving the furniture away from the door. We're painting today. The violation. I watched, jaw clenched, as they manhandled my couch, scraping it against the hardwood. One officer opened my fridge, helping himself to a soda, before Marjorie shot him a glare. Then, worst of all, Marjorie strode into my home office, my private space. She ran a finger along my bookshelf, pausing at the framed photo of my late father. My throat tightened. She had no right to be there, no right to look, but she did. And then she smirked. That smirk sealed her fate. The counter-strike. I didn't rush home, didn't call the police. Instead, I tapped into my security, system's remote features, and locked the deadbolt. Then I turned on the living room camera's 2-way audio. Attention trespassers. My voice boomed through the speakers, robotic and distorted. Marjorie yelped, nearly dropping her clipboard. The compliance officers froze. You are in violation of Penal Code 602.1, unlawful residential entry. All movements are being recorded. For legal proceedings. Marjorie recovered fast, her face flushing. This is HOA business. We have authority. You have until the count of 10 to exit. 10, 9, 8. The locksmith bolted first. The officers hesitated, then followed, abandoning Marjorie mid-sentence. She stood her ground, eyes darting to the camera. This isn't over, Miss Carter. 3, 2. She slammed the door behind her. The aftermath. I waited until the van sped off before remotely unlocking the door and driving home. Inside, the air smelled like fresh paint, but not my door. They'd only managed to move furniture before I'd interrupted them. On the kitchen counter, though, sat a half-empty can of Heritage Brown and a note in Marjorie's precise handwriting. We'll be back with a warrant. I crumpled it, smiling. No, Marjorie, you won't, because I had everything I needed to bury them.
The footage was damning. I replayed it 3 times, Marjorie and her lackeys invading my home, rifling through my belongings, the smug violation of it all, before exporting the highest resolution clips. My hands didn't shake as I typed the email, though my pulse hammered in my temples. Subject: Illegal entry and harassment by Willow Creek. HO attachments. Security cam footage about MP4, security cam footage 2 MP4, the recipients, every major local. News outlet, 2 investigative journalists, and, most importantly, attorney Daniel Reyes, whose website boasted a 98% success rate suing overreaching HOAs. I hit send at 11:47 p.m. By 7:15 the next morning, my phone was exploding. The media storm. Ms. Carter, this is Gina Torres with Channel 6 News. We'd love to interview you about the HOA footage. Legal analyst here. Those videos are gold. Any chance you'd... Hey, I'm with the Herald. We're running this as our lead story. Comment? I ignored them all except Reyes, whose reply was succinct. We can destroy them. Meet me at 10. The lawyer's play. Reyes' office was all sharp edges and glass, his suit worth more than my car. He didn't offer coffee, didn't need to, trespassing, illegal lockout, emotional distress. He ticked them off on his fingers. But the real prize? He tapped the screen, freezing on Marjorie opening my fridge. Theft. That soda's tangible value makes this criminal, not civil. I blinked. They'll argue it's trivial. Good. His grin was wolfish. Then we depose every homeowner they've bullied, subpoena their financials, prove a pattern of harassment. He leaned in. They'll settle before we file. Not enough. I slid my phone across the table. I want the board gone. On screen, Marjorie's smirk filled the frame. Reyes understood. The board's panic. By noon, the story was everywhere. HOA breaks into home over door color, caught on camera. The footage went viral. Comments exploded. This is why I rent. Sue them into oblivion. At 3:02 p.m., an email arrived from the HOA president, Warren Cole. Ms. Carter, let's discuss this privately. Misunderstandings happen. I forwarded it to Reyes. His reply? Too late. Boston. The trap sprung. The emergency HOA meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. that night. Normally, these were held in a bland community room. Tonight, the high school auditorium, packed. I arrived early, Reyes at my side, and watched as residents streamed in, many clutching their own violation notices. A woman with a toddler gestured to my phone. They fined me for a pink tricycle. Marjorie swept in last, Warren Cole trailing her. The room fell silent. Warren cleared his throat. Now, folks, let's not overreact. Overreact? A man in back barked a laugh. They broke into her house. Reyes stood. Actually, they committed burglary. He nodded to me. Play it. I projected the footage onto the auditorium screen. Gasps filled the room as Marjorie strolled through my home. When the soda theft played, someone yelled, "Classy!" Marjorie shot to her feet. This is a witch hunt. We have authority. Not to steal. Reyes dropped a stack of papers. These are affidavits from 12 homeowners ready to testify about your authority. He paused. Or we could just show the DA the video. Warren Cole turned ashen. The end game. The board called a recess. 10 minutes later, they returned with a deal. Resignations of Marjorie and the entire board. Reimbursement for my lock, legal fees, and absurdly, emotional damages. Reyes's touch. Amendment of the door color rule. The crowd cheered. Marjorie stormed out, but not before hissing, "This isn't over." I smiled. "It is for you."
The resignation letters hit the community inbox at dawn. Warren Cole, Marjorie Whitmore, the entire Willow Creek HOA board, gone. By 8 a.m., my doorbell rang. Louis stood on my porch, holding a stack of petitions. You realize what this means, right? He grinned. Emergency election. And guess who everyone wants to run? I stared at the papers. Over 60 signatures. 2/3 of the neighborhood. All nominating me, Pesh, for HOA president. The irony tasted sweeter than revenge. The takeover. The election wasn't even close. Standing on the same auditorium stage where I'd exposed Marjorie, I laid out my platform in 3 words. No more tyranny. The vote was unanimous. My first act as president, calling an emergency meeting of the new board, Luisha's VP, plus 2 other longtime HOA critics. We drafted our reforms in one furious night. Color freedom. Any exterior paint shade approved by a licensed architect. Due process. No fines without photographic evidence, and a 14-day appeal period. Privacy guarantee. No entry without 48-hour notice or imminent danger. Luis whistled as we reviewed the list. They're gonna hate this. I smiled. Good. The backlash. Marjorie didn't slink away quietly. The morning after our reforms passed, I found a typed letter taped to my door. Enjoy your reign while it lasts. HOAs exist for a reason. To protect property values from people like you. No signature, but the stationery, thick ivory cardstock, gold embossing, was unmistakable. Luis wanted to report it as harassment. I had a better idea. I framed it and hung it in the HOA office. The reckoning. 1 month later, the changes spoke for themselves. Front doors bloomed in emerald, crimson, even matte black. Bird feeders reappeared. A kid's lemonade stand popped up, unfined. Then the real victory came. At the annual neighborhood picnic, previously a stiff, HOA-mandated chore, half the street showed up voluntarily. People laughed, kids played, and when Marjorie drove past in her spotless Lexus, every head turned, and no one waved. The final twist. The email arrived at midnight from Whitmore, Marjorie subject, resale value. Attached, Zillow estimate. For 421, Oak Lane, UP 11% last quarter. No message, just data. I replied with 2 words. Thanks for noticing. Then I poured a glass of wine, walked out onto my porch, and admired my still navy front door.